Hello and welcome to part 7 of my Kundalini diary. While making these videos and going through my old diary entries, I couldn't help but wish I could finally conclude everything with a neat and tidy, I did it. I moved past the block and achieved everything I set out to achieve, rather than my past entries, and these ones that reveal just how frequently I lapsed into old behavioural patterns and struggled to contend with my own inner experience. By this point in my journey, I had already invested countless hours attempting to move forward and was nearing total exhaustion. Anyway, as always, if you haven't seen the other parts of my series yet, please consider watching them first, otherwise this won't make much sense. Kundalini Awakening, the Conscious Subconscious. Day 90. I have been experiencing feelings of frustration lately because of how anxious I am to move forward. I am also starting to realise that it's going to be almost impossible to progress while I'm still fearful of drawing attention to my own heart. Ever since the initial bout of nightmare consciousness, I still carry the fear that I'll somehow damage my heart by operating in this space. This is partly because it feels as if my awareness carries something that resembles an electrical charge, and I'm worried this could interfere with my heart's natural rhythm, as it seemed to do the first time. And I mean the first time I experienced the nightmare consciousness. Whenever I attempt to just explore my heart regardless, which I do in the hope of overcoming my fear, I start to feel as if someone is holding a pillow over my face, and I begin to physically struggle with discomfort. I legit start squirming and tensing my jaw. It's insane. I'm confident I'll be able to overcome this irrational fear eventually, but so far I'm not having much luck. An unfortunate consequence of this fear is that it seems to be translating as a gradual emittance of love from my practice. Coming to terms with this has been somewhat devastating, since love really has been the driving force and key to all my previous developments. Again, I'm confident I'll overcome this eventually, but still. In spite of these difficulties, earlier while listening to music and practicing upstairs, I was shocked to feel several thin needle-like objects seemingly descend into my forehead and crown. I experienced something like this a week or so after I first achieved Kundalini, but these ones felt far more physical and different in some way. The needle-like objects didn't seem to rupture anything, but the more I was able to focus on this phenomena, the more the sensations seemed to intensify and feel more physical in nature. This is still occurring now, even as I write this entry. Actually, I will try and clarify a little more because I don't think I'm being clear enough. It feels as if the needles are being driven into a tough and flexible material that feels as if it's beneath the skin and bone. The material the needle-like objects are being driven into has the flexibility of latex, but the material seems to be impenetrable as far as I am aware. There also seems to be a current of energy running through these needle-like objects. I do not know where they come from, and I'm open to the idea these too could be a construct or a component of my own consciousness. They feel as if they are coming down from outside of me, but how am I supposed to know for sure? Initially, I entertained the possibility the needle-like objects could belong to a third party, or possibly even a guide, but there's no basis for this assumption really, other than the needles don't feel as if they are a part of me, and I struggle to anticipate how they will behave, unlike most of the other inner objects I encounter. I do have a video plan though, sharing times in which I believe I have interacted with my guides, especially in the run-up to finally experiencing my Kundalini awakening, as well as when I first experienced nightmare consciousness. There certainly have been times where I've been almost certain they have reached out and interacted with me. Obviously I can't be absolutely certain that's what it was though. Day 91. I have been experiencing difficulty focusing again. I still seem to be processing a lot. I'm trying hard to just go with it all and trust in the process. I'm also trying my hardest to move past the difficulty with my heart, and consequently, I am experiencing a lot of physical heart pain and strain, which is most likely a result of the stress. Since this irrational fear is so ridiculously entrenched, I've been attempting to circumvent the issue by ridding myself of any residual fear of death or dying, since the worry of sabotaging my heart is probably rooted in a fear of dying. If I can get rid of that, perhaps the worry of sabotaging my heart will naturally fall away. And this is a later update. Last night after meditation, while I was listening to music in my chair, I felt the needles descend once again. It reminded me of some kind of surgery or acupuncture, since again the motion of these needle-like objects seemed to move methodically in an unpredictable way. My energy body also seemed to respond as the needles seemingly crushed into my skull with great force. I also felt a build-up of energy or pressure in my left hand towards the end. Day 100. All bodily sensations still continuously present despite the fact I haven't really been practicing. Lately I have been struggling with feelings of exhaustion, so I've just been trying to take it easy while I recuperate. I have also been neglecting my diet, which I suppose won't help anything. I just haven't really had much of an appetite at all. The inner experience is so dominant that it becomes very easy to ignore things like hunger. In addition to the regular bodily sensations, I have been experiencing strange new sensations within my physical hands, and I have been exploring this further in meditation. When I turn my conscious awareness towards my physical hands and allow them to relax, the temperature of my hands seems to drop quite a bit. There also seems to be the sensation of wind or air surrounding them, for as long as I'm actually focusing on them. When I allow my hands to relax into the experience further, the cold sensation continues to increase. It eventually feels as if I've dipped my hands in liquid nitrogen or something, and while this is happening, my hands begin to feel as if they're burning with the cold. Saying that, besides a slight drop, physically I don't note much of a physical change in temperature, so it's definitely related to my inner experience. Whenever I successfully bring the channel I perceive into alignment with my crown, it feels as if a gravity well is forming spontaneously at the center of my palm, for as long as I'm able to maintain the alignment, which I haven't really been able to do for more than a few seconds at a time. I then feel something that reminds me of a magnetic ripple travel throughout each of my fingers, all at once. Whenever this occurred, I felt a sense of release, and the uncomfortable pressure I associate with my experience seemed to diminish. Day 102. Again, I'm still completely exhausted, both physically and emotionally. All sensations still continuously present. I have been feeling somewhat tired and aggravated with myself. I know it sounds dramatic, but I feel as if I'm swimming against the tide, with arms so tired I can hardly feel them. This has been a time of great introspection for me, but I still just want to rest. Whenever I try and get to the bottom of this current state of mind and my exhaustion, I am unable to draw anything that resembles a sound conclusion as to why I am feeling the way I am. The conclusions I reach always seem to feel incorrect or just not completely true. It's as if there is a part of me that knows and understands. I am struggling to translate this sense of knowing into anything beyond aha, bullshit, and there's more to this. Having said that, I suppose there are few things in life that are truly black or white. Day 105. Ever since I achieved Kundalini, like a switch being flipped, my dreams became significantly more vivid overall. Out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming also became infinitely easier to achieve. Do I remember each and every dream that I have now? No. Am I able to recount each out-of-body experience or lucid dream that I have? Again, no. The important out-of-body experiences and dreams seem to be a lot easier for me to recall though. Those are the ones I typically share, especially if they seem significant. Sometimes I can only remember fragments of my unconscious activities that later seemingly fade into just a general sense I experienced something. There definitely is a marked difference, especially when I think back to how difficult it was prior to achieving Kundalini. In the past, unconscious activities like out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams seemed to happen sporadically, even if I was actively practicing and putting in a great deal of effort. I mean, back in 2004 while I was still in high school, I remember trying to develop my own method to reliably achieve out-of-body experiences. I spent weeks experimenting, even if it meant I'd be exhausted the next day. I remember setting alarms to go off after every 2 to 3 hours, so I could squeeze in as many attempts as I possibly could throughout the night. I remember starting each morning with a pint of cheap coffee, hoping it would get me through the day without dozing off in class, especially the evenings where I would decide to do an all-nighter in the hope of experimenting in the evening while being sleep deprived. I can't remember how long I was practicing, but eventually I did end up succeeding and managed to have a controlled out-of-body experience, and although I didn't really do anything particularly exciting while out, I was over the moon that it had finally worked. I do plan on sharing this experience in greater detail later, so I'll keep this brief, but before I realised I was actually out of my body, I felt as if I was lost in a daydream or something. I remember just casually staring at a board game that was sat on one of my shelves while thinking about something. Then it hit me that I was viewing the board game on my shelf from above and was actually looking down on it from the ceiling. I then looked down towards the bed and saw myself sleeping. This freaked me out because I thought I died. The experience ended after that and I woke up the next morning. The amount of effort I put into achieving that out-of-body experience was insane, and I never could reliably leave my body, but I did go on to have others randomly or whenever I felt depressed and needed the escape. But ever since Kundalini, I usually have at least one out-of-body experience or lucid dream per week, and they are far more vivid overall. I swear that some of these out-of-body experiences seem more real and vital than actual physical reality, and I really do love this aspect of this forever changing inner experience. As soon as I'm out of body, I seem to become an adrenaline junkie, flying as fast as I possibly can, or closing my eyes and allowing myself to roll and tumble into what feels like other dimensions of experience. I truly love the sense of freedom I feel when out of body or having a lucid dream. I understand that it may sound strange, but I really do value my subconscious activities, if you can even call them that. I value them as much as I value my conscious day-to-day stuff. I can't remember whether or not I've written this before, but while out of body or in the in-between state, none of the more unpleasant aspects of this experience are present. Throughout the day, I always seem to be trying to deal with the extreme pressure, especially at the crown of my head. This is a bad example, but have you ever carried a plastic bag full of heavy groceries? I'm sure you have. And as you walk, the bag starts to rotate, consequently knotting up your fingers and cutting off the blood circulation. I mean, I'm sure everyone's experienced this at least once. The pressure and channel I perceive above feels a lot like that sometimes. As I'm going about my day-to-day stuff, I feel as if I'm constantly trying to stop my bag, in this case, from annoyingly tangling up and cutting off the blood circulation to my fingers. When the pressure that I'm constantly talking about is too great, the crown of my head can begin to feel quite sore too. This is going to be another silly question, but have you ever randomly pulled out a few hairs from the top of your head and experienced that peculiar soreness that feels similar to a graze? I'm not sure if that one is just me actually. If I'm unable to ease the pressure, I feel something like that at the crown of my head, and occasionally feel it at the top of my forehead. But going back to the sleep stuff, ever since Kundalini, when my alarm goes off, sometimes I realise that I was actually deep in thought or in a daydream similar to what I experienced in my first out-of-body experience back in 2004. The alarm will go off and for a few seconds I'll be able to remember the train of thought I was engaged in, but I've noticed that I quickly start to forget upon waking, which feels similar to, how quick you can forget a dream. I've experimented a lot with the sleep stuff and sometimes go to sleep with the expectation that I'll solve a particular problem by the time I wake in the morning. Sometimes this works great, but only if I genuinely care about the problem I wish to solve. I've also noticed that while I'm laying in bed at night, it sometimes feels as if I'm gradually lowering my conscious awareness into a river. While this is happening, I sometimes feel my conscious mind fixate on what would likely become a narrative within a dream. At first, the flow of water is easy to resist, but after a while, the hypnotic images seem to become more prevalent and I can just go with it and fall asleep, or I can, with effort, maintain my conscious awareness and lucid dream or have an out-of-body experience. If I maintain consciousness, I can use one state as a springboard into the other. It's times like this I wish I was more intelligent than I am, because I did realise something very interesting, but I'm struggling to express it in written word. You know how I said it was like lowering my conscious awareness into a river? I think the river is always flowing and always present, regardless of whether you're awake or asleep. It might come as a surprise, but I used to daydream quite a lot when I was a kid, and the trance-like quality of daydreaming is very similar to slipping into the river or flow of consciousness. It's very easy for me to understand why the sun can symbolise day-to-day conscious awareness, while the moon can symbolise the subconscious mind, as well as our subconscious activities. The sun and moon really are two sides of the same coin in how they relate to aspects of the human experience. Later update. I could be mistaken, but during my evening meditation, I felt as if I was able to claw higher and higher through the space I navigate with the inner hands. It was as if I was feeling through a fleshy latex tunnel high above my head. I feel as if I am close to another major development. Day 107. The sensations continue to supersede my awareness of regular physical stimuli. There is most definitely a blending of some kind that is taking place throughout my entire nervous system. It's actually getting more and more difficult to practice as I did before Kundalini. There's a pronounced difficulty in relaxing as easily as I once did. I find that certain portions of my body retain tension, such as the back of my neck, and I keep finding that I'm automatically clenching my jaw as I descend through the deeper levels. Due to the growing sensitivity to the experience, my difficulty and unintentional reluctance cause me to brace and tense up, which is preventing me from going as far as I did during the first week or so post-Kundalini. Just wanted to add a general observation concerning the pulse of the heart. When the heart beats, energy travels outward throughout the entire body from head to toe. Think of a pebble hitting a calm body of water or a stick beating a drum, and the subsequent vibrations that are felt throughout the skin of the drum. The vibrations or ripples may themselves extend beyond the body. I also wanted to mention that goosebumps, or chicken skin, seem to produce a static-like energy, or a charge, that seems to culminate in the outer energy field. For a brief moment, the charge seems to surround the body via the energy field before integrating or dissolving into the field itself. And this is another update. I also had quite an interesting experience during this evening's meditation. Initially, I attempted to draw the energy into my hands and then relax into the sensations, as I described in an earlier entry. Here's a quick breakdown that I hope to expand upon when I eventually share my technique in detail. This does work temporarily, but afterwards my energy seems to intensify again, especially at the crown. I'm sorry to be so brief when it comes to stuff like this. I definitely want to finish my series first before sharing my techniques in depth. I hope you can understand my reasoning for this. Ideally, I want those interested to be able to determine for themselves whether or not this is something they wish to experience. As I've said from the start, this really isn't what I expected when I first began actively practicing. The thought of sharing my technique and potentially ruining someone's life is nightmare fuel to me. That's why I try and be open and honest about all this, and why I don't hesitate in sharing the more embarrassing and uncomfortable aspects of it. I will say again, though, that as difficult as it is and has been, I certainly don't regret doing it, but I do recognise this probably isn't for everyone. I've already mapped and planned out exactly how I will share my technique. I've created tutorials and exercises for preparation, and included things I wish I'd have done. Anyway, back to the entry. To cut a long story short, after performing this practice, I resumed my meditation and discovered I could synchronize my crown and root chakra, which appears to relieve a lot of the discomfort. While doing this, it felt as if my crown and root were spinning or vibrating in complete synchronicity, and with eyes closed, felt as if I was travelling at light speed. The sense of acceleration was intense. I'm used to the feelings of motion, but this was on a whole new level. My awareness felt lighter and expanded in some way. I almost felt as if I had induced a dreamlike state. Afterwards, I noticed the tightness had diminished quite a lot, and I felt renewed by the whole experience. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I appreciate it more than you know. If you have any questions or wish to share some of your own experiences, please comment below, and I'll either get back to you in the comments or address your comment or question in a later video.